Trump is panicking, finding any excuse to show up in military communities. He knows if elections were held today, he'd lose the military vote in a landslide. 60% of active duty officers disapprove of his presidency because Donald Trump disrespects those who serve.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
I like people that weren't captured, okay?
Our troops are in more danger today because of Donald Trump's betrayals. He abandoned our Kurdish allies in Syria, playing into Russia's hand. He wouldn't stand up for our troops when Putin put bounties on their heads in Afghanistan. His weakness emboldens the enemy. Now, Russia is directly engaging U.S. troops, slamming into our patrols in Syria, intercepting our bombers, and flying their bombers dangerously close to American airspace. Trump's refusal to defend America's national security is dangerous. His refusal to stand up for our troops is humiliating. His threat to deploy active duty troops against American citizens is unconstitutional. So when it comes to the military vote for the next commander-in-chief, Trump's not leading, he's losing.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Newman. I am first and foremost a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a wife and a proud mom. I voted for Trump in 2016 primarily because of the pro-life issue. I served in the Trump administration at the Department of Homeland Security and became the Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism and Threat Prevention. In my role as Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism, we looked at emerging threats, including the growing threat from domestic terrorists. And over the period of 2017 to 2018, we started to see that rise of the white supremacist agenda. I and my leadership at the Department of Homeland Security were very clear that we found the ideology behind white nationalism, white supremacy to be a growing threat. A very common refrain that I was asked was, does the president's rhetoric make your job harder? And the answer is yes. The president's actions and his language are in fact racist. Things like, they're good people on both sides, or send them back from where they came from. Those words gave permission to white supremacists to think that what they were doing was permissible. And I do think that the president's divisive language is indirectly tied to some of the attacks that we have seen in the last 2 years. The reason government is supposed to exist is to plan and prepare for external threats like we're seeing today with COVID. There were plans put in place for a pandemic for 15 years. When we started to see that a pandemic was on its way to our shores in January, any number of experts told me we need to be executing on these plans. But from January until March 11th, what you saw instead was a number of good public servants attempting to do their job and the president telling them to stop because he didn't want the economy to tank and he didn't want a distraction from his campaign. I'm sorry, Mr. President. You were hired to handle America's worst day, and you've absolutely failed. I do not think that we can afford 4 more years of President Trump. We are less safe today because of his leadership. We will continue to be less safe as long as he is in control. And this year I'll be voting for Joe Biden.
My son was the first person to die in combat under Donald Trump. Just 5 days into his presidency, Trump ordered Ryan's SEAL team into Yemen. Not from the Situation Room with all the intelligence assembled, but sitting across a dinner table from Steve Bannon. There was no vital interest at play, just Donald Trump playing big man going to war. And when it went horribly wrong,
when you lose a $75 million airplane and more importantly, American life is lost and wounded, I don't believe that you can call it a success.
Donald Trump demeaned my son's sacrifice to play to the crowd. For nearly 4 years, Trump has assailed our country's core values. When Russia put bounties on our troops' heads, Trump defended Putin instead of our military.
I think it's a hoax.
He kneecapped the Postal Service to undermine our right to vote.
This election will be the most rigged election in history.
He's misled us throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
200,000 Americans will have died before we vote. They and Ryan have one thing in common. It didn't have to be but for Donald Trump. If you hear one thing, let it be this. Don't trust Donald Trump with your kid's life or your own.
I think he's a kook. I think he's crazy. I think he's unfit for office.
What concerns me about the American press is this endless attempt to label the guy as some kind of kook, not fit to be president.
Donald Trump has shown himself to be a showman. I don't think he's a serious candidate. You may know me as a supporter of President Trump.
We've spent 7.5 years with an authoritarian president who ignored our Constitution. We don't need 4 more years of that.
Susan and Nick are more safe, and their freedom's more secure because President Trump has put his America First vision into action.
Donald Trump's candidacy is a cancer on conservatism, and it must be clearly diagnosed, excised, and discarded.
And I said, Mr. President, I know there are people that say, you said you were the chosen one. And I said, you were.
Do we want someone that has maybe something a little more intelligent to say than the Mexicans are going to pay for it?
Join me in supporting President Trump.
This man is a pathological liar, a narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
Donald Trump will be overwhelmingly reelected as President of the United States.
I have an obscene relationship with salami. I just love cold meat.
The best is yet to come.
When I was 5 years of age, I packed a big thing of salami in my suitcase.